Hi, how do you like me without my mustache? No, I didn't shave it off. It fell off. You see, my real one ended up getting so gray that it became invisible, for the filming. So I shaved it off and I got myself a fake one to put on, and that kept falling off. And I just got tired of taking breaks and putting it back on. So last time it fell off, I just left it there. People say I look better without it. I'll let you be the judge of that. But all right, enough of the small talk. Now I'd like to get on to what I'm here to talk to you about. And that's namely a guy called the Chevalier de St. George. So let me talk to you while I read from some of my notes, and I'm sure you'll learn as much as I did about this man, and I think you'll be very happy to know it. Okay, the Chevalier of St. George, I've already told you about Alexander Dumas, the general, the progenitor of the Dumas dynasty. And if you listen to my discourse, you heard me say that he was the greatest swordsman in all of France before his time, except for one man that he couldn't beat, and that was the Chevalier de St. George, who also happened to be black. Now, I promised to talk about him later on, and this is later on. So just sit back, enjoy this tale, and I'm about to tell you about one of the most amazing men who ever lived. Now, the Chevalier de St. George was born in Guadeloupe in the West Indies on Christmas Day, as a matter of fact, in 1745. His mother was a black woman of extraordinary beauty by the name of Naomi, and his father was the rich Marquis Jean de Bouillon, the governor of the island. He was later to become the king's counselor, the Grand Chancellor of France, and the High Treasurer of the Order of the Holy Spirit. That's a mouthful to last a man for a lifetime. At the age of 13, St. George's father took him to France to study, and he brought for him the best tutors in all of Paris. St. George's daily schedule was like this. In the mornings, he'd study music, literature, science, and some other subjects. In the afternoon, fencing, marksmanship, riding, and physical exercises. And in all of these subjects, he excelled all those of his age. He distinguished himself in other events as well. He used to ice skate with perfect grace and was the best among the best of the swimmers. I mentioned before that his mornings were devoted to the study of music, and this was under the tutelage of the virtuoso violinist Leclerc. He developed a skill on this instrument that was equivalent to the best of the French violinists of his time, and was the morning star of the concert halls when he played his concertos. He eventually acquired the reputation of being the most brilliant violinist in the history of music. Now, in the sport of fencing, at 15, he defeated the best amateur swordsman in Paris. By the time he was 17, there was no professional swordsman in Paris who could match him. At the age of 21, he defeated the renowned fencing champion of Italy, Faldoni. And it should be noted that the Italians dominated the sport of fencing back in those days. Now, after the match Faldoni was quoted as saying, "I do not believe the fencer who can beat this man has been born yet." A contemporary of St. George by the name of Larousse once said of him, this master of arms, I should say, whom they surnamed the Inimitable and the Invincible, never fought a single duel because no one dared risk their lives against him. Now, this statement is supported by a story about an encounter he had with a Hungarian hussar. The Hungarian was bragging to a group of ladies about his exceptional skill with the sword, and St. George was getting tired of listening to him, so he interjected by asking the hussar if he had ever fought the Chevalier de St. George. "Oh, many times," responded the hussar. "Beat him every time, too." "Oh, I'm extremely impressed," answered St. George. "And I'm wondering if you could spare the time to give me a quick lesson right now." "Gladly," answered the hussar. So foils were brought in, and during the lesson, St. George kept hitting the hussar at will. Quickly tiring of this elementary exercise, The Chevalier turned to the ladies and told them which button on the hussar's uniform he was going to hit, and continued to do so on every lunge. Now, the hussar, still not realizing who he was dealing with, irately shouted, "Now let's do it with real swords." "I don't think so," answered St. George. "If you couldn't beat the Chevalier de St. George with a foil, I don't think you should try it with a real weapon." The hussar, his face by now already a bright red, he turned and quickly exited from the drawing room. More about the Chevalier of St. George later.